Piper platform. All personnel abandoned.
Blasted, burned alive, and suffocated by toxic fumes while trapped inside the accommodation block of the world's largest oil-producing rig as it was about to sink to the ocean floor. The 226 crew members on the Piper Alpha oil platform faced one of the costliest man-made catastrophes and single worst oil rig disasters ever in a fatal chain of operational mistakes, with a total insured loss of about $2.8 billion. However, workers who attempted to escape the raging inferno were left with profound psychological and physical scars. On July 6, 1988, at 12 p.m., during crude oil and natural gas production in the Piper oil field, located 120 miles off the coast of Aberdeen, Scotland in the North Sea, one of the rig's 2 condensate pumps was shut down for its biannual maintenance. 2 permits were issued, one to remove and service the pressure safety valve from pump A, and the other for its overall inspection. After removing the safety valve, the responsible engineer temporarily sealed the open condensate pipe with a flat metal disc cover, only hand-tightening it to allow for easy replacement of the valve later. By 6 p.m., the maintenance work remained unfinished. The engineer documented on the permit that pump A was not ready and emphasized that it must not be switched on under any circumstances. On the Piper Alpha, the oil company expected the crew to work long 12-hour shifts in a high-stress environment overseas for weeks at a time without weekends or a day off. Crew members in the late 1980s earned between $15 and $30 per hour while living on the rig. Meanwhile, Occidental Petroleum Corporation, who operated the rig, had earned $4.7 billion in the previous quarter alone. The long work hours and limited breaks over extended periods led to high fatigue levels on the rig, but none of them could have imagined what was about to happen. Their daily operations would soon become a nightmare. With the day shift over, the night shift began at 6 p.m. At this time, 62 men operated the Piper Alpha, while 164 were resting in the living quarters. However, the engineer who had worked on Pump A during the day did not properly communicate the pump's status. Although he had documented the pump's condition on a permit, it was stored separately from the overall pump inspection permit and never reached the night shift crew. In addition, during the shift handover, the lead operators did not review or discuss the work permits for tasks that were incomplete or on hold. This oversight was about to lead to catastrophic consequences. To make matters worse, at 7 p.m., while divers were working in the water, the automatic firefighting system, driven by diesel and electric fire pumps, were switched off. This was to prevent the divers working within 10 to 15 feet of the 120-foot caged underwater intakes capable of drawing large volumes of seawater from being sucked in. Additionally, the divers placed rubber mats on the steel staging platform beneath Module B of the rig to make it less slippery and more comfortable while they were barefoot equipping their diving gear. The platform had sharp holes for grip and oil drainage. However, with the mats in place, any oil drips could now accumulate and pose a significant fire hazard. At 9:45 p.m., condensate pump B suddenly stopped due to methane ice buildup in the gas compression pipes, causing a blockage. These pumps are crucial for transporting condensate, a mixture of hydrocarbons and water generated as a byproduct of gas processing operations on the rig, to various processing facilities. Initially designed in 1975 for oil production only, Piper Alpha was modified in 1978 to include gas processing capabilities in response to British government gas conservation requirements. This modification involved adding a gas conservation module on top of Module B to prevent wasting excess gas through flaring. The platform was a fixed structure consisting of 4 main modules, A, B, C, and D, all strategically separated by fireproof walls, with A being the drilling module, B, oil separation, C, gas compression, and D, the living quarters. This design ensured the potentially hazardous operations were kept farthest away from personnel areas for safety. However, the addition of the gas conservation module compromised this critical safety design. After this modification, the rig entered Phase 2 operations. During this phase, The GCM facility treated the gas obtained from the nearby Tartan and Claymore platforms and separated the condensate and re-injected it into the oil export pipeline to the Flota oil terminal in Orkney Islands for further processing. The Tartan platform, owned by Texaco, and the Claymore and Piper Alpha platforms, operated by OpCal, were interconnected by pipelines with Piper Alpha as the central rig. The primary oil pipeline extends from Piper Alpha to the Flota oil terminal. Claymore, located 22 miles west of Piper Alpha, pumped oil directly into this main pipeline, while Tartan routes its oil through Claymore. Gas from Tartan and Piper was directed 30 miles northwest to MCPO1 for processing and distribution. Nevertheless, at the end of the 1980s, major reconstruction and maintenance was planned by OpCal for the Piper Alpha in an effort to restore one of the world's largest rigs to its peak. But the oil industry is not known for its patience, and despite the complex and demanding work schedule, Occidental made the decision to continue operating the platform in Phase 1 mode throughout this period and not to shut it down, as had originally planned. This meant that excess gas was flared off again rather than processed and exported. All of this made day-to-day operations significantly more complicated. The number of personnel increased, as did the level of specialization required for many jobs on board. Communication channels became larger and more convoluted, and crew members were tasked with handling significantly more paperwork. It is now 9:52 p.m., and with Pump B out of commission, a search was conducted through the documents to determine whether condensate Pump A could be started. The permit for the overall inspection of Pump A was found, but the permit for its pressure safety valve replacement was not. Due to the distance between the valve and the pump, the permits were stored in different boxes, sorted by their respective locations. The permit indicated that the scheduled overall inspection had not yet begun, and the operators were under the impression that the pump could be started. Anxious to reinstate the condensate pumping capacity and unaware of a critical component missing from Pump A, the operators decided to start the pump nonetheless. With gas now flowing inside Pump A, the loosely tightened metal disc cover could not withstand the resulting pressure. A high-pitched noise signaled gas escaping, triggering the gas alarms. But before anyone could react,
Explosion and fire on the Piper platform. All personnel abandoned.
with the rig now ablaze, flames raged uncontrollably, engulfing everything in their path. A massive fireball instantly consumed the men, including key personnel inside Module C, blowing through the fireproof walls. The entire platform shook violently, destroying the control room almost entirely, sweeping the operators off their feet, and throwing crew members from their beds all the way in the accommodation block. Immediately after the explosion, control room operator Jeff Bollins rushed towards the rig's emergency stop button and activated it, ceasing all oil and gas production. But it was too late. The initial explosion unleashed an unstoppable chain reaction. Amidst the chaos and fear, many men instinctively headed towards the muster point at the accommodation block, the designated area for gathering during evacuations, as they had been trained to await further instructions and rescue. Debris from the explosion ruptured another condensate pipe in Module B, triggering a secondary blast that further fueled the roaring flames. Meanwhile, crew members inside Module D remained unaware of the escalating disaster, as the alarms in their module failed to activate, and with the control room destroyed, no instructions were being given to the men. The platform's organization starts to disintegrate as the situation rapidly moves from bad to worse. The offshore installation manager on the nearby Claymore and Tartan platforms could see the explosions from 20 miles away, yet they both decided to continue pumping oil and gas through the pipelines into the heart of Piper Alpha's inferno for hours, fueling the fire. Despite the unfolding disaster, neither rig received permission from the headquarters in Aberdeen to shut down production due to the high financial costs involved. Inside the radio room at 10:04 p.m., operator David Kinraid placed multiple Mayday calls.
Mayday, explosion and fire on the oil rig.
The entire platform went into blackout as electrical power failed after the main generator tripped and the emergency generator did not take over. Multiple search and rescue vessels were dispatched in response. including Sea King rescue helicopters from the nearby Royal Air Force Base. Numerous fast rescue boats from nearby ships also rushed towards Piper Alpha to save stranded crew members in the water. Due to the intensity of the heat and flames, helicopters were unable to land on the platform. In addition, many of the pathways were blocked by heavy smoke and flame, making it impossible for the men to reach the lifeboats. But things are about to get much worse. With the firefighting system in manual mode and no one left to activate it, the flames spread throughout the platform like wildfire. At 10:06 p.m., crude oil pipework and processing vessels in Module B could not withstand the extreme temperatures any longer and ruptured, which released oil that violently ignited, resulting in a pool fire that produced a massive black plume of smoke, visible to ships miles away. The burning oil subsequently dripped onto the diving platform, where the divers had recently placed the rubber mats, allowing the oil to form a burning puddle. The puddle continued to expand until at 10:20 p.m., the unthinkable happens. The heat from the burning oil burns through the tartan pipeline, causing a rupture and triggering another violent explosion. This releases 30 tons of highly flammable gas, which immediately ignites into a massive jet fire, further intensifying the firestorm. At this moment, the platform's destruction becomes inevitable. The emergency procedures explicitly stated that jumping from the platform was strictly prohibited due to the high risk of death from impact or hypothermia. As a result, 87 people remained trapped in the accommodation block. However, with black smoke, toxic fumes, and 2,000 degrees centigrade heat encroaching, some men found themselves with no other options. With their survival instincts in overdrive, they ignored the procedures and decided to jump off the helideck, the highest point of the rig, from a height of 175 feet or 53 meters into the icy blackness of the North Sea. As more men took their fate into their own hands, they began leaping from various levels of the platform. But little did they know, hope was on the way. One of the vessels near Piper Alpha during the initial explosion was MSV Tharos, a large semi-submersible firefighting, diving rescue and accommodation vessel. Equipped with a hospital, an offshore medic, diver paramedics from a saturation diving team, and water cannons, it arrived at 10:30 p.m. and immediately deployed its cannons to cool the platform. However, the water pressure from these cannons was so powerful that being hit could cause serious injuries or even death. Meanwhile, on the tartan platform, tensions escalated. Many crew members had friends and family working aboard Piper Alpha, and despite fear of losing their jobs, the pressure to halt oil flow was now approaching a boiling point. Ultimately, the operators ignored the commands from higher up and stopped supplying gas to Piper Alpha. But the pipeline still contains high volumes of gas, which still fuels the fire and takes hours to depressurize. At 10:50 p.m., the pipeline connected to the MCP-1 gas platform also fails, resulting in yet another catastrophic explosion. The subsequent jet fire sent massive flames soaring over 300 feet or 90 meters into the air, forcing Tharos to withdraw from the flames. The explosion destroyed a small rescue boat that had successfully saved 2 survivors, tragically killing everyone on board except the coxswain. At this point, the Claymore rig also decided to stop pumping oil and shut off the gas flow line to Piper. However, it was far too late. At 11:20 p.m., the platform begins to disintegrate. A 4th explosion rips through the remaining structure, adding even more fuel to the already massive jet fires. Sea King search and rescue helicopters began arriving on the scene, conducting sweeps for survivors in the water, but their efforts were unsuccessful. Instead, they shifted focus to transporting injured survivors from the rescue vessels to the Tharos platform and Aberdeen Royal Infirmary. At 11:45 p.m., critical support structures began to fail due to the extreme heat, causing the platform to collapse. The generation and utilities module, along with the fireproofed accommodation block, with 87 men trapped waiting for evacuation, slipped into the North Sea, killing all inside. By 12:45 a.m. on July 7th, nearly all of Piper Alpha sank to the depths, leaving only Module A standing. Since both lifeboats and the helideck were compromised by smoke and flames, The only survivors were those who ignored the procedures and either jumped into the water from different decks or climbed down using knotted ropes. Of the 226 men on Piper Alpha, only 61 escaped, resulting in 167 deaths total, including those on the rescue boat. Among the 135 recovered bodies, most died from smoke and gas inhalation, with 4 from burns and several from jumping into the sea. 30 bodies were never recovered. It took more than 3 weeks to fully extinguish the fire. A saturation diving team later dove down to retrieve the accommodation module with the bodies of the 87 men still trapped inside. Lord Cullen's inquiry determined that Occidental had inadequate safety and maintenance procedures. Occidental was forced to pay $220 million in settlement money to the victims and their families. In 1992, they constructed a new platform, named Piper Bravo, on the same North Sea oil field, which remains operational to this day.